as Amy Goodman would say, speaking truth to power, campaigning for third parties, not just the Green Party, but the whole principle of third parties. We are in debt to him beyond anything we could repay. A warm welcome, please, to Ralph Nader.
Thank you. What a nice welcome here in Los Angeles. Thank you very much. What's on the table for Nader Gonzalez? What's off the table for Clinton, Obama, and McCain? And just look at the difference. We call these three candidates the corporate candidates, whether they're Republican or Democrat. And here's just an example. The big HMOs and hospital chains and drug companies say no to single-payer national health insurance. That's full Medicare for all, great efficiencies, free choice of doctor and hospital. The majority of the American people say yes, and a new poll, 59% of physicians say yes. They want a single payer. Who prevails? It's the corporations. The corporations love a bloated, wasteful military budget because that's sales for Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Grumman. They love it. General Dynamics, the enormous waste. The first $9 billion spent in Iraq, they don't know where it went. The government doesn't know, Bush doesn't know where it went. Cutting the huge bloated military budget is on the table for Nader Gonzalez. And that money goes back to public works. And those billions and billions of dollars should go back repairing America, the drinking water systems. Look at MTBA getting into your water. Now, we want some of that bloated military budget dollars to put in modern public transit, to put in upgrades for sewage treatment systems and drinking water systems and rebuilding clinics and schools and libraries, and no more tax money for commercial stadiums and ballparks. Okay, just quickly now. We say no to nuclear power, solar energy first. Clinton, Obama, McCain say nuclear power is on the table. Aggressive crackdown on corporate crime and corporate welfare. No, says Clinton, Obama, McCain. Oh, that would ruin their pipeline of money into their campaigns to go after the corporate crooks, throw them in prisons. When I was growing up as a boy in Connecticut, the Fortune 300 companies, the biggest 300, the CEOs were paying themselves through rubber stamp board of directors 12 times the entry-level wage. It's now between 400 and 500 times. In Walmart, they're working for $7, $8, $9, $10 an hour. The boss, the CEO, last year got between $11,000 and $12,000 an hour, every hour. That doesn't count benefits and perks. These two parties have spoiled our government. They have spoiled our elections. They have turned our government over to giant business. It's now a government of the Exxons, by the General Motors, for the DuPonts. And they have the nerve, after they've run our democracy into the ground. They've broken the back of the middle class. They've stolen the rights from working people. They've shifted the tax burden away from giant corporations who have no allegiance to this country anymore to say that a new progressive effort that's going across the country is a spoiler. How do you spoil a spoiled, rotten political and governmental system? At a time when workers need more collective bargaining power because you've got multinational corporations that were born in the USA, rose to profit on the back of American workers, went to Washington when they got in trouble with their mismanagement, corruption, for a bailout on the backs of American taxpayers. And when they got in trouble overseas, they called on the U.S. Marines. So how do they pay back the American people? Here's how they pay back the American people. We're out of here. We're going to take your jobs and your industry to communists and fascist dictators and oligarchs and never look back. Now, what kind of guts do we have as people? What kind of intestinal fortitude is left with us? What kind of rational anger we cannot muster? Are we to become serfs once again? Is this going to become a reversion back into the dark ages? Open up the presidential debates so we can reach tens of millions of Americans and show what's up. Why don't we tax things we dislike the most first before we tax human labor, before we tax the necessities of life in the stores that you go into? A massive revenue can come from a security speculation tax. A tiny tax on it, $500 trillion of transactions every year will bring in a lot of money. Tax gambling, tax the addictive industries, tax polluters, tax corporate criminals before you tax workers. Imagine that one on the presidential debates. The moderators will flip back in their chairs when they hear that one. Reverse U.S. policy in the Middle East. 6-month negotiated deadline to withdraw our military and corporate forces from Iraq will knock the bottom out of the insurgency. It will give us time to negotiate a agreement between the Sunni Shiites and Kurds with modest autonomy under a unified Iraq, which is what they want, continued humanitarian aid, and a UN-sponsored election. Otherwise, more quagmire, more death, destruction, more boomerang against our own national security. Solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. You don't do that. You don't do that by a government in Washington that is a puppet show instead of a peace show. A puppet show 100% supporting, with your tax dollars and all kinds of aid, the militarists, the hardliners in the Israeli government who want continued occupation and repression and colonization and water draws from the West Bank. 64% of the Israelis said the Israeli government should negotiate with Hamas. Only 28% said no. Did you hear about that? In Washington, D.C., where you have the puppet show instead of the peace show? You think McCain and Obama and Clinton are going to do anything other than be part of the puppet show instead of the peace show? The most impeachable, multiply impeachable presidency in American history should be impeached. Bush and Cheney are impeachable for high crimes and misdemeanors. That's the phrase in the Constitution. They have committed a war of aggression. They are war criminals. That's one of the first kinds of high crimes and misdemeanors that our founding fathers would think of. They never wanted the president to be able to plunge our country into war. That's why they gave the war declaration power to Congress, which Congress has abandoned again and again, most recently in March 2003, when the shock and awe, imagine calling shock and awe, missiles hitting a civilian city like Baghdad. Impeachable number 2, spying on Americans in the thousands without a judicial warrant. Impeachable number 3, torture, systemic torture, violating the Constitution, the U.S. Army Field Manual, and the Geneva Conventions. Number 4, arresting thousands of Americans without charges, putting them in prison without letting them to invoke their right of habeas corpus. Impeachment number 5, 800 signing statements by Bush, more than all other presidents combined before him, where he basically signs the bill Congress sent him, says, I'll decide whether or not I'm going to avoid it. If the Congress run by the Democrats don't impeach Bush Cheney, they are setting the bar at an outrageous level for future presidents who think they can be above the law and beyond the law. Furthermore, if they're not going to impeach it, we should start a rumble throughout the whole country of resign, 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 both of you. Together, we not only will make a difference, we must make a difference.